Good afternoon, and welcome to the continuation on the series Farmers Markets during COVID-19. This is a joint venture between Illinois Farmers Market Association and University of Illinois Extension. My name is Lori George, and I'm one of the U of I local food systems and small farms educators with my office located in the Mount Vernon area. Over the past month or so, we've been offering webinars to help you develop, implement, and maintain your farmers markets going into the 2020 growing season. As many of you can relate, it's been a little unique. We've had several speakers that have given us suggestions and ideas on how to revamp our markets in order for us to go forward with confidence. Rules and regulations have changed, with vendor, volunteer, and customer safety being paramount in this thought process. Today, we're bringing back Jane Maxwell, Executive Director of the Illinois Farmers Market Association. It is through her organization that market guidelines have been developed and accepted by many market managers and organizations throughout Illinois. Jane is here today to talk about these guidelines and answer any questions you may have. Welcome back, Jane.
Thank you, Lori, and thank you to Lori and Extension for hosting these webinars. We have received feedback that they've been helpful, and we are really pleased to be able to offer this series to you. A little bit about the Farmers Market Association. We are a small 501c3. In many states, the state-level Farmers Market Association is housed within the Department of Agriculture or Extension, but here in Illinois, we are an independent organization. We are membership-based, and we look to provide education and training on the best practices for managing your farmers market. We promote farmers markets wherever we have the opportunity, and then we work in the advocacy arena, trying to break down any barriers that farmers markets and vendors have as they sell their product at markets. So farmers markets here in Illinois are considered essential. It goes back to the original executive order that was released in March. We did need some further clarification because the first executive order actually said certified markets, but then we got guidance from Illinois Department of Ag that that was not necessary. But what is necessary is ensuring the safety of our vendors, our customers, and following social distancing guidelines, and then enhanced sanitation to make sure that happens. One of the first things the Farmers Market Association did is we asked vendors to let us know about their revenue for the 2019 season, and then potentially what would happen if the 2020 market season did not happen. We heard from 113 vendors who were willing to share this kind of information with us. And as you can see, the amount of money, the revenue generated from farmers markets is not insignificant. Here in Illinois, just with 113 vendors, you see almost $3.8 million. There's actually a federal number that says that there's about $2.4 billion that is exchanged through the farmers market system across the country. But probably what was most troubling is we saw comments like this.
Jane, I think we lost you.
Okay. Are we there now?
Yes, you're there now.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. We know from statistics that about 25% of all the people that sell at farmers markets only sell at farmers markets. So we can understand this. But we also see that producers that have added additional venues in addition to farmers markets for their sales are also facing an uncertain season because they rely heavily on the opportunity to interact with the customer, to build their brand, and to create a following through selling at the farmers market and in addition to other outlets. So my farmers markets, we think they're really key, and I think most of the people on this call probably do. But we really are trying to create food access. We know that our local producers have food. We know that our local consumers need food. There have been interruptions in the conventional supply chain, and so this link becomes even more important. The other is that last year in Illinois, about almost $800,000 of link or supplemental nutrition assistance program funds were used at farmers markets. That's significant for the beneficiaries, the people that use those programs, but it's also very beneficial for the producers that sell through those programs. We know that the farmers market supports the local food system. It supports the local economy. Money that comes into a farmer's market stays more local than money that is spent at a conventional grocery store or even a big box store. We want to be sure to support our local producers and growers, and there is a much shorter supply chain with farmers markets. There was a recent article where a epidemiologist from Drexel University outside of Philadelphia was quoted as saying that she felt that farmers markets might be the safest place to buy food this season. They're open air, good air circulation, and in addition, the short food supply chain. And we are seeing growing demand. And those markets that have opened already are reporting, if not similar sales to 2019, most are reporting maybe the best market seasons they've ever had. So this is a graphic that's available at ilfma.org. That is a picture of the short supply chain. If this could be useful to you in your discussions to why farmers markets matter, it's available to you. And so then what was our goal? Well, when we put together the COVID-19 toolkit, we had a couple goals in mind. One was, in my early conversations with customers, with decision makers, with civic leaders, I was hearing a lot of pushback about farmers markets because I think we have this vision in our head about this great community gathering space filled with people, lots of tents, lots of activities, prepared food, all sorts of things. And that vision, and not being able to see how a farmer's market might operate otherwise, was clouding the view that maybe farmers markets could go forward during COVID-19. So we wanted to have a vision for what was possible. We also inquired with the Illinois Department of Agriculture and Illinois Department of Public Health and found out that they were not publishing additional guidelines for farmers markets during this season. So we worked with Illinois Department of Ag and Illinois Department of Public Health to create the toolkit. Our goal was public safety, of course, but also vendor safety. A number of our vendors actually fall into some of the higher risk categories for COVID-19, and so we wanted to make sure that we were keeping everyone safe at a farmer's market. Obviously, we want to see sales, we want to see profits for our local producers, and we really do want to have a venue for distributing local food and agricultural products. So two main guiding principles: maintain social distancing and then also enact enhanced sanitation procedures. If you go to ilfma.org, this is the connection to the toolkit. We have heard from a number of local health departments that they are using the toolkit as at least a guide, as a template. But obviously, when you are talking with your local health department or your local officials, you need to be sure that you are following the guidelines that they are setting out for you. Usually, the state health code, the one that we typically follow during a farmer's market season, is the minimum, and then many communities, local health departments will add to that. And so you want to make sure that you know exactly what it is that your local community is expecting of your farmer's market. Well, we've had some very exciting weeks. I have to applaud all the farmers market managers out there for the incredible amount of passion, dedication and hard work that has gone into opening or sustaining winter markets over these last weeks. I mean, when I think about what people have done to reinvent their markets, bring them forward safely, I mean, it has just been amazing. And so it's just really been exciting on these webinars to hear from market managers and hear what they've been able to do. This is just a picture of a couple of the examples that are out there. We heard from the Carbondale Farmers Market about their drive-through system. It's an actual drive-through where you drive through and select what you want as you go through the drive-through. We have other online platforms like in Bloomington or some other markets where you order online, the market aggregates the product, and then there's a singular pickup or delivery point for those products. And then we're starting to see markets open using the in and out face-to-face farmers market model like we see here, pictured here in Urbana. I don't know if you can tell in the Bloomington picture, but behind them it's an alphabetized orders, and I think she said about 375 orders per market. So we put together this toolkit, and it is available. You can download it. If you have already downloaded it, you might want to note that the customer guide has been updated, so you might want to download a newer version of that. But there was a lot of thought that went into this, especially around enhanced sanitation. So when you think about the need to social distance, so that means potentially spreading out your market over a significant area to allow for adequate social distancing, not only for the booths, but also for the customers coming into the market that then have to wait their turn in line to purchase product. There have been questions about how many people at the market at one time. Some people have closed off the entrance and exit to limit the number of people at a time. And again, that would probably be regulated on a local level. But there are some guidelines if you need more specifics that the Michigan Farmers Market Association has published that are required by their state in order to open your farmers market. So again, it may be a little bit harder to see on the screen, but hopefully you can just download this. But as you're even thinking about vendors, the executive order covers things that are essential. That would be food and agricultural products. Many markets have limited who can sell at the market based on providing essential products only or exclusively. Others have limited who can sell at the market based on space. So that if you normally had, 25 vendors, and now with 6 feet between each tent and each station and enough space for people to wait in line, that requires significantly more space. And so that's why the recommendations, or that's why you're seeing many markets go to food exclusively. One of the things that we believe strongly in is educating your customers as they come, make sure there's adequate signage, telling them what to do, an adequate number of volunteers to actually run the market and guide and direct and gently remind people what is required to participate at the farmers market. So the other piece then too is then having the enhanced sanitation guidelines. So what you're trying to think of here is how to eliminate contact between the customer and the vendor and the product. I've had a number of people reporting that they feel a little uncomfortable now going to the grocery store and watching people handle all the products that are available, and then they have to handle it too. So we put in a step to keep the product away from the customer so that it is the vendor that then selects your product, bags it, and then somehow, usually on a transaction table, sends that product to you. You pick it up, take it with you. You pay through that same distance process, and then you can be on your way. A couple things that have come up that is a recurring question is about cash. Cash is notoriously a dirty commodity, and so we certainly recommend transitioning to as many cashless systems as possible, even if possible not accepting cash. But if cash is accepted, we've seen success with limiting the transaction and eliminating change. So again, that goes back to customer education, reminding them that they may not get change, to bring small denominations with them so that they can more closely match the amount of money that they owe. But again, like I said, our producers have not noticed particular issues with customers giving the difference to the producer or having the customer then increase what they buy to make sure that they meet the limit of the cash that they're carrying with them. But as many touchless systems as possible is what is recommended. So, and every surface that the producer has or the vendor has should be able to be sanitized. So not only at the market, regular sanitation, but then also being able to sanitize the entire setup once you get back home or back to the farm, so that you're not taking back as a vendor any contamination from the market as well. So that does eliminate a lot of our really pretty, beautiful setups. It takes it to a more, I guess, generic setup where the goal is safety and sanitation as opposed to the beautiful ways that most vendors find to display their products. So I'm not going to hit every item here, but this will be an opportunity when we're done. If you have questions about specific things that are on here, we can go back and look at that. But you'll see in the guidance that there is an example of how a booth might be set up with a transaction table in the front and the produce in the back, even going so far as to recommending that product might be pre-bagged. But then again, labeling everything either through a big sign or individually that particular product needs to be washed once it goes home, that it's not ready for consumption right now. Okay, again, signage is key, really an important piece. And then again, if you do have a smaller space, is there a way to set up your market so that it stays, social distancing is possible. Many markets, again, have closed the entrance and exit. That also gives them a chance to figure out how many people are in their market space at one time. And in addition, it may create a one-way flow of traffic. That's a lot easier to manage than multiple flows of traffic, and so that the ability to keep social distance is usually enhanced when there is a one-way traffic flow. I've seen markets concerned about if they have, especially if they have a bigger market, if it's just a one-way flow of traffic, that people regret that they didn't pick something up at the beginning. So they may have exit points, multiple exit points along the market route, but the customer is required to go all the way back to the beginning to re-enter the market in order to go back to one of the earlier vendors. So again, lots of market considerations, but these are all around creating that safe space, touchless, sanitizing surfaces, educating the customer, and eliminating those typical things that we see at markets, which are great gathering points, seating, places to eat or wait in line, because at the market now, the goal is food procurement. It's not that social interaction. One of the things that was shared on a webinar earlier this week was kind of having to prod vendors that this is not a social gathering, because they really enjoy their customers just like the customers really enjoy them. But it has to be a little bit less of a social event and a little bit more of a transaction-based market. All right. Let me move on. All right, so then for vendors, you'll see that the vendor guide pulls out all the enhanced sanitation and social distancing requirements and puts them into one place to make it a little bit easier for the vendors to know what it is that they need to follow in order to be safe at the market. And again, we're really trying to encourage behaviors that are not only good for public safety, but for vendor safety as well. Now, any of these things are in addition to just the normal food safety requirements that health departments have put forward. You know, if you sell a cold product, it has to be kept at the right temperature. If you sell, if you have cottage food products, they have to be appropriately labeled. None of the old, previously used regulations around food sanitation go away. They are required and then built on in the Toolkit guidelines. All right. And then customers, again, just trying to remind them that you don't come to the market if you're sick. Across the state of Illinois, now masks are required, and so requiring masks to enter the market. Again, one of the markets that shared earlier in the week said as a courtesy to their customers, they have masks available for purchase. If in fact a customer did not come to the market with a mask, they did have some pushback. Was reported, but they just held firm, and those customers were turned away. It was a very small minority of the number of customers that came to the market that wanted to shop without a mask. Gloves are a little more debatable. And not because gloves aren't a great thing, we see them in food service all the time, but gloves tend to give people a false sense of security. So what's really important is to keep your hands clean. So whether that's through an appropriate hand sanitizer or hand washing stations, that's what really matters. Now, people put on one pair of gloves in the morning, your customers, and then they leave the house and they use that pair of gloves all day. Well, that's just like contaminated hands. So that doesn't really work. Or maybe your vendors thinking about cash transactions or whatever aren't really thinking about that either, as long as I have gloves on. Well, you still can't do any of those behaviors that could potentially contaminate the gloves. And so I feel like there's a growing sentiment that except where gloves are required for food sanitation code, it might be recommended to rely on hand washing as the best means for keeping your hands clean while you're at the market or while you're waiting on customers. Another thing is that this is no longer a family event. I think it's Kayla from the Springfield market that said that they've been trying to put out via social media, food is serious, not social. And so this is not a family event. We know that for some people that this could potentially create a hardship if it's difficult to get to market alone. But, you know, the hope is that some markets have actually put together times for more vulnerable populations to shop, maybe in the early morning hours before the market would typically open, or asking, again, people to ask a neighbor or a family member to pick up their product for them at the market, rather than bringing an entire family. In addition to then exposing all those people to the market, though the additional family members take up space, and that can be difficult as well. Pet-free as well. Use your credit, use your debit, use your SNAP or Link tokens, but that would be the primary way to purchase things. If cash is used, don't expect change. Don't touch anything. You know, this is supposed to be touchless. Let the vendor package your product. A lot of people that shop at farmers markets, me included, love to use my reusable bag. And I don't think we can tell our customers that they can't use their reusable bag. But as a vendor or as a farmers market manager, it's important to remind people that are actually packaging up product that they should not touch a customer's reusable bag. And again, the guideline would recommend that a customer wash their bag regularly rather than just reusing it without washing it. What's the other thing? And again, trying to from a vendor and a market standpoint, keep your Facebook and social media accounts up to date, because that's where we're sending people to find out about what's available for the market so that they can have an idea of what it is that might be available for purchase before they get there, so that it's not a long and drawn out process when they do get the opportunity to actually place their order with a vendor. So here's some signage that ILFMA put together. It is part of the toolkit so that it's ready to go. You can just download it. If you wanted to add your logo to it, that would be fine with us. We've also seen within the Farmers Market Manager Network, which is a Facebook group that was created by the Illinois Farmers Market Association for farmers market managers. We've seen some sharing of resources that specific market managers have put together. So if you are not part of that group, I would highly recommend you find it on Facebook. It is Illinois Farmers Market Managers Network. Become a part of that group so that you have access to some of these resources that other markets are putting out and are happy to share with you. We are still experiencing some pushback from local jurisdictions because many markets require permits in order to operate. We just really encourage some perseverance, or in some places it's actually been possible to move to private lands so that, or private parking lots, so that permitting is not an issue any longer. But again, that's something that you need to discuss within your local jurisdiction. Of course, the issue with SNAP sales is they cannot be done online. And so I know one of the main reasons that many markets have added a face-to-face or an ability to actually make payment at the market, no matter what type of market it is to not exclude the SNAP or Link customers from purchasing products at the market. Pre-ordering can be done on some of the really cool web-based stores through a partnership with Market Maker. We have a relationship with Local Line. You can set up a store through Local Line. As a small producer, you would just be charged a transaction fee, or you may choose to actually do a Local Line subscription. There are apps out there. There are ways to set this up, but we've also seen in other markets it's been very successful to just publish the email address or a phone number for a text message back and forth between the customer and the producer. So it doesn't have to be a complicated, elaborate setup, but one that it does encourage the pre-orders, the prepayments, if possible, so that we are limiting transactions at the market. And we are recognizing that markets are much more labor intensive, more than they have ever been. And so we are working as an organization to see if we can't at least get that message out to decision makers, but then also pursuing potential opportunities to find some funding to try and help markets as they deal with some of these increased costs. Now, I don't know if, this is a PDF, it's not going to show. So this is a video that was produced by the Illinois Farmers Market Association. It is available on our Facebook page. It is available on our website. Again, it's great to have some testimonials, and if it's something that's difficult for you to put together for your market, then I would highly encourage you to feel free to use the testimonial of Jim, a regular Urbana farmers market shopper. Now, in addition to the toolkit, there is an ILFMA COVID-19 resource page at www.ilfma.org. There you will find all the webinars that we've done, recordings where they have been possible. You will find additional resources. You will find Jim's testimonial. You will find the details of the survey that we conducted, and quite a few more comments than I was able to show here today. So just check back and look at that and see what additional resources might be available to you. There are things like how to, and then also within the toolkit, the Michigan Farmers Market Association has shared with us their guidance for cleaning Link SNAP tokens, and so that's available. And then the Bloomington Market shared with us a waiver that they have all of their farmers market volunteers sign before a market, so that that's available to you as well. So I didn't want to take the whole time with the presentation, just with an overview. I wanted to make sure that we added a lot of time for questions. So I'm going to defer to Lori to ask me the questions so I don't have to find them in the chat, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you. You caught me mid-posting to the chat box. My apologies.
No problem.
So if anybody does have any questions, please put them into the chat box and we can go ahead and answer them. I do see a few here, so let me get to them real quick. All right, let's see what we have here. The governor's order allows for medical exemptions to mask wearing. If a customer claims that they cannot wear a mask for medical reasons, what is the appropriate response by the market manager? Are we allowed to ask for a doctor's note or other proof of medical exemption?
Well, I would think that that is a market-by-market decision by your management staff, but I think you have every right to ask to see a letter of exemption, and then ask them to take special steps, or depending on the nature of your farmer's market, you might decide that you're very concerned about that, again, especially if they were showing any symptoms of any kind. So, but again, I do think you probably would want to ask if they have a note showing that medical exemption, and if they don't, I would be very concerned about letting them into the market.
Okay. There's another question concerning the legality of opening on private space if jurisdiction has prohibited opening any farmer's market.
Yeah, that is a concern. What we found was that that's going to vary by jurisdiction. And so that's something I think is a good question for your decision makers, is that if I found another piece of property to open my market on that was not public land, what would your response to my market be? And I think that's just a good question to ask. I have heard, at least in one case, where the local government did not want to grant the farmers market a permit because they felt that that might open the floodgates of other organizations asking for permits as well. And so they actually were helpful in trying to find other possible private land for them to operate on. So I think it depends within your jurisdiction. If you've been told, no, there will be no farmers markets, no gatherings, I would just ask for clarification on what that might actually mean. And it may mean different things in different communities. Again, always the local jurisdiction has the final word.
Boy, that was a good question.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any Illinois guidelines to calculate customer capacity at a market? It says, I'm aware of the Michigan Department of Public Health method, but couldn't find anything specific to Illinois. This is from Katie.
Yeah, Katie, that's because there aren't any specific to Illinois. So many farmers markets have told me that they have had to submit a plan to their local health department for review before opening, and I think in that they were able to see the dimensions and figure out whether they needed to put limits on the number of people at the market at a time, or whether it's the kind of market that could just move freely throughout the market. So I think that that's probably just, again, an individual decision. But I think markets are tending to err on the side of caution, at least in the first weeks, and have an entrance and an exit and limit the number of people at a time. And then seeing what the traffic flow is, seeing how that works, seeing if they calculated right or guessed right on what they thought would work, then potentially moving forward.
Okay. I don't have any other questions from the customers, but I do have a question myself. Do you see this form of farmers markets that we're developing now extending past the time of when the economy and everybody starts opening up and being able to congregate this summer? Do you see a lot of these changes continuing on past that point for the summer season?
Boy, that's a really tough question, and I wish I could predict the future for a lot of things related to COVID-19. But I do think one of the goals for this summer for the farmers market season is to build customer confidence, consumer confidence. And so whatever systems you need to put in place to maintain that level of customer confidence, depending on what the local jurisdictions and the state level guidance are, that's what I would recommend you do, because we want to make sure people feel safe. And if people don't feel safe, they're not going to come. And so whatever that looks like within your own community. I think some of the enhanced sanitation things that we're doing, although maybe they seem out there, I think hand washing stations across, or, around a farmer's market or in an individual vendor's booth, those are some great ideas that I actually kind of hope stay, because I think it could enhance the overall safety of a market. But those decisions will be made, I think, as we move forward. I don't think we can predict that right now.
Okay, good. We have a couple more questions. One of them talking about restrooms at farmers markets and restroom accommodations, maybe for the vendors. Yeah. Anything, you have any comments on sanitation or facilities, or what does the manager do in those situations?
Yeah, I would definitely not have public restrooms. Again, the goal of the market is to come and to go, and not to linger. Hopefully, if it's a community-based market, people have the ability to get back home before they need to use facilities again. But if you do offer a vendor restroom, ILFMA has not considered any guidelines on how often you would clean them, or by what means.
Okay. One from Karen. Your picture of a tent setup shows the products to the back and the vendor in the front. In the Evanston pictures that you had, apparently there were some products in the front of the vendor. Which setup would be best?
Again, that might be a local jurisdiction decision. I would highly recommend keeping the product back behind the vendor, but that could be a local decision.
Okay.
I would highly recommend that.
Okay, great. Let's see if I have anything else. I don't have any other questions, but I do have a comment. I work a lot, this is Lori, I work a lot with food safety here in Illinois and the Food Safety Modernization Act and the produce rules. So I'm always thinking about getting food safely to the customers. And I've had a couple of farmers markets talk to me within the past couple of weeks. And these are some of the larger farmers markets where they may have a lot of customers coming through, maybe 200-300 people that come through on a market day. They wanted to be able to set up their farmers market the night before, so they could stage everything to make it a lot easier, so you don't have to get up there at the market at 0:30 on the day of the market to be able to set up the products. And I said that would probably be a good idea. Bloomington, you heard that they were alphabetizing on the tables, and I said that's great, but you need to consider that if you have any perishable food, anything like eggs or anything that needs to be refrigerated or frozen, I would suggest to your growers to have them bring those products the day of the market, rather than letting them sit in the venue or wherever the market's going to be staging it on an overnight basis. So keep that in mind if you have anything that you're trying to sell that needs to have some sort of refrigeration or special accommodations, that you have your vendors bring it the morning of. Let's see. For shoppers with children, no access to childcare, allow them to enter with a single parent if there's no alternative. Your suggestions on that, Jane?
That's a really hard one, because I feel a lot for single parents and this issue. This is a confounding issue. I just think it's a really tough call. And if there was a way to assist a parent by offering maybe a personal shopper to go through and do some of that for that particular individual, that would probably be the best solution. I hate to expose a whole lot of other people to the market. We don't, it's just confounding. So again, if there can be some buddy shopping or a personal shopper that was provided by a volunteer at the market, that might be the best answer. But that would be a community by community decision. That's just a hard one.
Yeah, it is. Is the Illinois Farmers Market Association purchasing face masks at all, or have venues to purchase face masks?
You know, I am in discussion for an opportunity to purchase face shields, the kind that you would, maybe see a medical worker using.
Okay.
That still has to have a mask underneath it, and then also potentially the masks. If you are interested in that, if we get that opportunity, I would subscribe to our mailing list so that you see that opportunity come your way, or you can just send me an email at info@ilfma.org, and I can add you to that listserv of markets that have expressed some interest. We don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but that's still kind of in the beginning stages of discussion.
Okay. And Ed has a question concerning the COVID rules for the markets as opposed to the local grocery stores. And Ed, I don't think there's really a very good answer for that, because farmers markets right now have different rules and regulations than what the grocery stores do. And I'm not familiar, and I don't think Jane is really familiar with the grocery industries and how they handle their foods. That may be something that you should talk with your local public health department on that, and see what they say. I wish I had a better answer for you, but we have two entities here that we know about one, but the second one on the grocery stores is hard for us to get a handle on.
I think also, though, one of the things I would add, Lori, though, that we are trying to gain customer confidence.
Yes.
And if customers notice that there is not appropriate sanitation or distancing or whatever the case may be, then it's going to be a concern moving forward. And we really want to make sure that that's mitigated as much as possible. That's really, and Lori's right. I'm a grocery store shopper. I am not a grocery store expert.
Okay. I did have one comment here that said the face mask shields would be wonderful. So Jane, if you ever get to that point, you would send out something hopefully to everyone. Okay.
I would. Yes.
All right. Great. Well, we have a few more minutes, but I don't see any other questions coming in. So I'd like to thank our Jane for taking the time to talk with us again today. Thank you, Jane. And as the market season progresses, should you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to contact the Illinois Farmers Market Association or myself. And I'd like to thank everyone for joining us. I hope that some of the information that you received will give you the confidence to move forward, keeping customer and food safety in mind. If you have any suggestions for topics you would like to see presented, please let us know. A link to this and past webinars will be sent out later today. Thank you again for joining us. Have a great day.
Thank you.